appreciate that so much. I am going to open up. I'm going to read off a little bit because I want to make sure that I touched all of the and covered all of the bases. But first of all, I just want to thank you all for coming out and showing support, number one, not only for this class, but for the program in general. Polly approached me, I want to say at this point, 4 months ago, with this idea of creating a cocktail program and menu, something that could be written down, something that can be documented and carried on throughout the decades. You're fine. That really sort of encompassed black bartenders from the past and their contributions that were made to the beverage industry and the mixology industry, but also taking a lot of my colleagues from now, Capri Robinson, Dwayne Sylvester, Al Thompson, I'm missing one. Who am I missing? Lauren Paler. Oh my God, Diageo, like world champ. Love this girl. And putting us all together in a menu that really sort of spoke to the then and the now of what's going on in our city, in our industry, and how it's affected us, helped us, and put us where we want to be in our careers, but also showing that we've made contributions then and we can still make them now. And so as they were going through and doing their talks and everybody was getting their topics together, I felt that everybody was touching on all the points, right? When it comes to history, when it comes to what you really want to know about where you come from a representation standpoint, you can talk about the greats. You can talk about the John Dabneys. You can talk about the Cato Alexanders. And you feel like you belong in the space. But there was the other side of the story that still needed to be told. And a really great friend of mine, as I was actually beginning to go into the works of D&B Black Restaurant Week with Aaron Tucker and Farrar Tate, and we're sitting down and being like, yes, we're gonna do this, I sort of gave this, I talked to one of my friends about what we were trying to do, and her answer to me, and one thing that I want you to remember throughout this entire talk, is that they wanna hang out too. They wanna hang out too. They wanna hang out too. We wanted a space too. And DC, more so than any city that I've seen, that I've researched, that I've looked into, that I've actually even talked to people about, actually was one of the beginning places where you could start and have your own scene. Now there were definitely pieces and variations of that up and down the East Coast, up and down the Midwest for sure. But DC was sort of that culmination of that sort of homegrown understanding of culture and dance and vibe and getting away from your everyday stress. But up north, you have that opulence and that nightclub and that vibe that you really get in, I don't know, a place like this, right? DC really kind of brought those places together. Now, to be fair, where we are as we stand in this particular building, there weren't a lot of blacks that were down here, unless they were working, right? So it kind of is a sacred space in that. But what we did do was we were able to create spaces outside of that. And so what I'm gonna do is attempt to take you through a little bit of a time hop, definitely a geographical hop, in showing where and how we became DC Chocolate City. All right. Let's get into it. Now, before I hit this first slide, I will say this is 100% interactive. You do not have to agree with anything that I say. Anything that's on a slide, for the most part, is going to be a certain fact, a quote, anything like that. How you feel about something is how you feel about something. If you need to say something, say it. Raise your hand, let's talk about it. Let's do that in the middle of it. Let's get to it right there. I will also say that I am one of those people. If I don't know, I won't bullshit you. I'll say that I don't know, and I'll look it up, and I'll take that, and we'll validate that, and I'll get back to you. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay.
That's real.
Let's get to it. All right, the beginnings of drinking culture in DC. Now, to get to where we are right now, we do have to remember that there were definite points of action within this country that made it difficult to do what we wanted to do. Whether it's walk down the street, whether it's own property, whether it's start a family, whether it's marry who we want to marry, there were definitely points of time throughout the history that made what we do as hospitality industry folks, as Black people, a little bit muddled. So if we start up top here, I started with John Dabney opens his first bar and inn in 1810. Who knows who John Dabney is? Show of hands. Deke, who's John Dabney?
He was an amazing bartender from Richmond. Helped popularize the julep. World famous bartender.
What color was he?
Black.
Black man. Black man opens up his own first bar and inn in 1810. 1810, all right? 1830s and 40s, that's when he sort of like really makes a name for what he's doing. Dick Francis, sorry, that should say Cato Alexander, that's my fault. Dick Francis in 1827 starts working at Hancock's. Now he worked at Hancock's, was able to purchase freedom for himself and his wife, and then his son later went and bought the bar. This is 1827, all right? Now the temperance movement, the first inklings of that was the 1830s to 1840s. The temperance movement was a group of people that thought that being under the influence was unholy, right? And that we should be more Christian in what we're doing. And it really did strike a chord with several people in the country, including politicians, which then throughout the 1840s and then through to, as we know, through Prohibition that happened in 1933, we have the Civil War in 1861 to 1865. Now, before the Civil War, which in history classes, I feel like people tell you, and your teachers tell you, that there were no freed slaves before that. This is why they fought for freedom. This man owned and operated a bar in 1810, okay? Obviously, primarily for white people, right? But at the same time, he was still able to create something before that. Now, DC in particular, because the Emancipation Proclamation didn't get signed into law until 1863. DC, slaves were freed April 16th, 1862. All right? Which means a lot for us as a people, as a town. That essentially is what started that creation of the influx of Black people to the city. But obviously we'll get there. Jim Crow laws come right after the Emancipation Proclamation, right? And they force segregation, right? They force that separation, but it's on a state-by-state basis. So your freedoms in Mississippi may not have been necessarily what your freedoms were in Virginia, in North Carolina, in New York, in New Jersey. 1898, my D&D Black Restaurant partners will be happy that I popped this in there. The R.R. Bowie and J. Burke Edelin start the Black Mixologists Club, which was for people that wanted to follow in the footsteps of Cato Alexander, of John Dabney, and of Dick Francis, and really start to create a hospitality model behind what we do behind the bar. Because you could do things like buy your freedom, you could purchase land, you could afford to excel, obviously in a white man's world, but you could afford to excel through what we were doing with respect and with notoriety. The temperance movement then is revived with Prohibition, 1920 to 1933. We just celebrated the Repeal Day Ball last Saturday. 86 years at this point that Prohibition has come out of, has been reenacted, but at the same time, when you look at what Prohibition did for these gentlemen, who nobody really started talking about until Dwayne Sylvester started talking about them in 2013, nobody knew who they were. I've been doing what I do for 18 years, and I never knew that there were Black bartenders outside of the people that I saw in the TGI Fridays when I went with my mom. It wasn't a viable job. No, I mean, keep it up, Super 100. All right, fine, then we'll just talk about it. I had no idea. It wasn't a career option. It wasn't something that anybody talked about. It wasn't something that was like, oh my goodness, blah, blah, blah. As soon as I got a taste for it, then I was like, can you make me my Cosmos? And I'm like, of course I can. But it was never an actual, it didn't become a job for me because none of those things seemed real because of the temperance movement, because of Prohibition. All of those documents were then lost. And you have these historians that went back and like tried to revive that. But at the same time, who do you think the last people that they tried to talk about were? The king of the julep was gone. That ended up being somebody else's cocktail. Now that cocktail is related to horse racing and rich white people when it was created by a black man. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right. Talk about this about 10 minutes. Okay, got that. Okay, so slavery is still in play, kind of not in play, throughout the 1850s to about the 1890s. Southern juke joints came about. Now, this is the first real bastion of black freedom, okay? You have slaves that, because their masters understood that there are uprisings, that they understood that, all right, we need to give them some sort of release, all right? Let's just give them a space to be and to congregate, whether that would be to pray, whether that would be to imbibe. Let's give them their own space. Now that eventually, as people got free, people are on sharecropping territory. Most of these places that were open, called the juke joints that were open, were off the beaten path, so that the police, if you're traveling, they can't see your space, right? Obviously, if you have a group of black people congregating in one space, it's always going to be a bad idea at that point, right? That's just a mass, let's take everybody to jail, all right? But what also ended up happening is that some whites also started juke joints. And they did that in a practice that still happens today. If you're on a property, you want to make sure that that dollar is coming back to you and it's not being spent anywhere else. So also what you would see in sharecropping territories is that there would be general stores and things like that where you could get credit from and all of that. You buy all your needs at the general store, you go out and have a good time at a juke joint, right? But there were opportunities for black people in this space, right? You would find abandoned barrel houses, you would find abandoned barns and things like that. And they really were extremely decrepit, right? You walk in, you have a good time. But the idea of the juke joint was definitely something a little bit more raw, right? Juke, as it's supposedly supposed to be interpreted is a Gullah word. And Gullah, who's familiar with Gullah culture? Yes, I like that show of hands. That's a lot more than any other room that I would have ever been in. So thank you for that. So juke, it derives from the word jug or jug, which means rowdy or disorderly, right? So some of those dances, like the honky tonk and things like that, they were a little bit more raunchy, a little bit more raw, a little bit more, for lack of a better word, spiritual. Were happening in these places, right? Cheap corn whiskey, right? Definitely some fights breaking out. Somebody's fighting over somebody's girl. It was just very sort of raw. But as Paul Oliver said, and as Zora Neale Hurston also commented, is that it was the last place that you could be. It was the antithesis of the white man's resort. It was exactly the raw and real of what you would get when you experience being and hanging out with black people and being around them. And that is why the juke joint was so important. And to sort of further that, I mean, the House of Blues literally looks like a juke joint. They could have turned that place into anything else they wanted to. Literally, the outside of it is like fake broken wood this way and that way. And they have like a fake, nailed on sign. And that's part of the culture. And I understand that that's where the blues and things came from, but you can already see the appropriation that happens with that. Okay? And then that's the last little point there, is that the design and the structure was for that, but then also the juke joint then at that point starts to become out of fashion. And why do things start becoming out of fashion? Politics and money, right? At some point, when people are free, they are forced to go out and find something better for themselves, no matter what. And for people in the South, the only place left to go was, thank you. Let's go to the North.
Be with you.
I'm with you too.
All right.
All right, we're going up north. Now, to say that things were much better, they definitely were better, but they were different. Freedom is not free. I think we all understand that in this room. Okay. All right, so I say up north, all that jazz. The Harlem Renaissance. We look at this time and period as that like booming black excellence, black opulence. You've got your Sammy Davis Jr.'s, you have your you have your Nina Simone's, you have your Langston Hughes, you have your Cab Callaways, your Duke Ellingtons. You have all these people that are like out there and putting forth their music, their art, their writings, their speeches. Everything is now happening and buzzing in Harlem. What's not happening in Harlem is ownership. What's not happening in Harlem is the right to be in spaces. Now, I have a bullet point on here, and I was really back and forth deciding on whether or not I was going to put it up here. Who here has heard of the Cotton Club? What does the Cotton Club mean to you? You say you heard of the Cotton Club? You have?
No, I hadn't heard.
You hadn't heard of the Cotton Club? Somebody over here raise their hand.
Oh yeah.
Yes. What does the Cotton Club mean to you?
It's like an underground society.
It's an underground society. Who else has a feeling about the Cotton Club?
Cotton Club where black performers were allowed, but they were not allowed in the crowd, and so the crowd was exclusively white.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is something that I legitimately, when I watch, there's a movie, everybody's seen this movie, at least probably in this room. There's a movie called Life, all right? And one of the guys in Life, his whole big dream was to have this nightclub that was essentially the Cotton Club. We knew it was the Cotton Club. We didn't know, he didn't say the Cotton Club, but we know he was talking about the Cotton Club, right? The design, the architecture, the Art Deco, the white and black suit, all that kind of stuff like that. We knew he was talking about that. The Cotton Club, as we know it, and in any variation, did not allow black people in it for 15 years, okay? So the fact that that is probably one of the central pieces of the Harlem Renaissance is bullshit. I think that's the only way really to describe that, but let's unwrap that a little bit. So, Jack Johnson, heavyweight champion of the world, right? He's at this point got so much money that he's like, I want to do something. I want to do something with it. And we know how that feels, right? Like, all right, you see a basketball player, you see a football player. Playing sports is the way out and the way to make yourself something. You can't fault anybody for that. But investing is the way to do it. I will say restaurants are difficult. Choose something else before you do a restaurant.
Real talk.
Do something else. But he sees this as an opportunity to create a space for black people. He legitimately said, I want to open this place. It's a 400-seat place called Club Deluxe. Club Deluxe was the Cotton Club. He can't turn a profit. Why can't he turn a profit? Somebody's got it. If not, I got it.
Give it to us.
Money. You're talking about a situation where blacks were there were segregated jobs, right? There's segregation in New York. There's the signs that say blacks, Irish, Jews, dogs don't apply, whatever, blah, 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 blah. If you don't have expendable income, then it's very, very, very hard to be able to go out and use that somewhere. Not to mention the things that he had to go through to even open this space and do it on his own, without a loan, without anything, right? So he's losing money like crazy. On top of that, especially in Harlem, but in other neighborhoods as well, gangs. Super, super, super gangs. My boy Martin Scorsese loves to make movies about. He loves to highlight how they took over New York, how they did this, how they did that. Most of what they ended up doing was taking a lot of real estate and a lot of property for black people. And that is just real, and it's honest. And I mean, I guess at the end of the day, admirable in some way, because they were actually they actually were able to make something of it. But if you look at it from the place of our people, there was a very real lack of ownership that was happening in this town, in New York, right? So, Oni Madden, white guy from Britain, his street name was The Killer. He goes to Jack Johnson and says, I'm gonna buy your club. 3 years after he opens it, he says, okay. But of course, he lets Jack Johnson manage it. We'll get there later. So yes, because he wanted to create that openness to the black community, but only for black performers. The Cotton Club was renamed the Cotton Club as more of a joke. And it was one of the biggest stereotypical sort of dance for your massa kind of places that was ever created. No blacks allowed to patronize from day one. The only time that they ever let people in was when Jack Johnson, after he won a fight, he had to like legitimately go to Oni and say, I want to have black people here because I'm coming home. And I believe the newspaper article said the inaugural entrance of the Sapiens, Sepians, as in the color, not the Homo sapiens. And that was the introduction to black people into the club shortly before it closed in the Harlem side of things. But the idea was to keep Jack in the forefront, to bring in the Lena Hornes, to bring in the Dorothy Dandridges, to bring in the Cab Callaways, the Duke Ellingtons, all of them. And for the most part, if you go back, and I went back, the only people that have bad things to say about the Cotton Club outside of myself are other writers and other historians who feel that it was a puppeteered kind of experience. Literally, it was supposed to be a jungle, raw, bohemian experience for white people to sit and go, wow, look at that, right? All of the dancers, 5'6" or taller, thin, but light-skinned black women. All of them. The men could be darker skinned. Why? Why?
Blackface, yeah, come on, keep it 100.
You have a very raw sense of that jungle man in your space. You're the white savior sitting in your seat, and you have these very real dark characters around you. Now, nobody could mingle, not even the performers. The performers would leave, and they would go to the landlord of the building's basement area at 646 Lenox and drink there. Cheap shit, because why not? Right? But they were never allowed to mingle with the actual patrons. They were looked at as a show. Now, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually has written this really amazing book about all of this, but where black people actually did go and were able to hang out was Lenox Lounge, Savoy Ballroom, and Renaissance Ballroom. Lenox and Renaissance were black owned. Savoy was still owned by a white man, but was also still run by black people, but they had a very, very, very open policy, right? And that's where the stories that we know come from. It's definitely not from the Cotton Club, because once the Cotton Club shut down for the riots in 1936, they reopened up in Broadway, like around Midtown, and it really wasn't the same. Like, they still had people coming through, but it wasn't the same, right? And then it shut down 1940. And so that really sort of set the tone for people looking for other places to be, right? And when they found their homes, what they ended up seeing was that gentrification and the lack of financing and the lack of being able to go out to these places were then tearing these places down. Most of these places, including the Renaissance Ballroom, which is at the bottom here, they had a basketball court there, there was a casino, all of that was then bought up in the 70s and turned into high-rise apartments. Super, super early, okay? So you have these very raw, real, decrepit barn houses that are super fun, obviously. I mean, you can't not have fun just being in a real raw and honest space. You have these highly opulent spaces that were built out for people in New York with a lot more sort of that educated influence, right? The music, the culture, all that. But everything sort of comes to, everything sort of comes together when you talk about DC. Now, who would describe DC as the South in here? DC is the South for you? Where are you from?
Ohio, and they say I'm country.
Okay. All right, that's fair. All right, Ohio. I got you. All right, no, that's what I'm saying. DC is the South? DC is the South? All right, who thinks that DC is the North?
DC is the
DC is the north.
DC is the Middle East.
DC is the middle southeast.
DC is the Middle East.
All right, fine, whatever.
We the Middle East. We the Middle East. I'll put it on t-shirt. The Middle East.
We're in the middle.
DC is the shit.
DC is the shit. I like that. All right. Hold on. I knew that was gonna do that. I didn't know it was gonna do all that. But all right. So DC being both, DC has not both. DC having cultures of all of it.
All that.
Right? You have people that are fleeing that stop in DC. You have people from the north that are coming down to DC. Now, why would somebody in New York? Because New York is like, ooh, I'm from New York, right? And when I talk about DC, I got you. Is that a hand raise? Queens Village? I heard that. Bronx, heard that. But why do you think that people from the north would flee New York? It's home. Why do you think they would go south?
For realness.
For realness?
For realness.
Maybe not. People from the south is like, oh shit, you gotta get away from white people. I can't walk down the street. People, this is like the height of lynching right now, right? This is the Negro Green Book. You had to have a guide to tell you where you could sleep. You know what I'm saying? So people came for a ton of reasons, but this is how DC became Chocolate City. 100%, all the things right here. Okay? Outside of the fact that babies and all that. But yeah. Everything that we see right now today in DC is not new. Okay? But what did happen was that there were unsegregated federal jobs. Right? We have a ton of federal workers. And if you're black and you are an artist, let's say, and you still need to pay your fucking bills, you can still get a job in the federal government that is a solid, stable, 9 to 5, pay your bills, start a family, whatever you need to do, right? Ability to grow within their communities. DC, while it was still segregated from a political standpoint, and definitely from a neighborhood standpoint, but everybody kind of had their territory, and where you were able to build is where you were able to build, okay? We've already talked about why they wanted to leave, escaping Jim Crow in the north, being able to actually own your businesses, because as we talked about with the Cotton Club and with several other clubs and other small businesses that were black that I don't think that anybody really talks about, is the fact that black people don't own things in their community because a lot of them were taken, forcefully taken. Lose your life, your family lose your life. This is my neighborhood now. I'm bringing in all my Italian friends. I'm bringing in all my this, that, and friends, and now you've got to go. And then it became government mandated because of gentrification. So then people need to go because they want to do things, but they have nowhere to do it. But in DC, you could do it. You have black leaders, black civil rights activists.
Marion Barry.
That were, yes, indeed. We're talking, okay, that's fair. We're talking about a lot earlier than him. Okay? He was a good dude. He was good, he's a good dude. But we ain't there yet. We ain't even there yet.
He wasn't even here yet.
He was, exactly. Thank you. But so you had a lot of people like, okay, the People's Drug. Everybody's heard the People's Drug? Yes, yes? Okay, right? Which is now what? What company is it now? CVS. Thank you. All those little sit-ins that you see and all that, a lot of those happen here, right? This country is so rich with that because there were people that came here and were able to speak their voice. The politicians, the white men, they stayed down here, right? They had this, we had that, and made something of that. And everybody kind of left each other alone. So it needed to be. The country's first black YMCA, right here in DC, okay? Industrial Bank, the oldest African-American owned bank. Well, what do you need? What's the very first thing you need when you want to start a business? Money.
Capital.
What is the one thing that we know?
We don't get
When it comes to, wait, what? What is the one thing that we know when it's like, hey, I'm a person of color, I gotta go to a bank?
We don't get it.
I think it stops a lot of us because we say, nah, it could be great. Our history could not be great, but it's fine. Our idea is great. But there's this stigma of like, maybe I'll just like talk to my friends and see if they can give me some money. And then we end up opening subpar things. And that's a real thing too. And we'll get there too. But 1913, John Whitelaw Lewis, who also happened to open a hotel down here so that black people can stay.
Titanic. He said 1913.
Duke Ellington stayed here, huh? Oh.
1913? Wasn't that
1913.
Not Titanic?
That's 1912.
Sure. Sure, that. John Whitelaw Lewis, who also opened up the Whitelaw Hotel. That's where all the black performers would stay because they wouldn't let them stay down here.
Your history.
Heard that.
I am learning.
All right, let's bring it back really quick. So, having an African American bank with a primarily African American base creates a boom of business in Washington, D.C. Right? The biggest boom, or one of the biggest booms in the city, and one of the biggest cultural hubs, right, is one that we still patronize, and I think it's still, and again, this is opinion-based, but you can come for me if you want to. I think it's still definitely hurting and could use a lot more love than it actually has right now, and a lot more support than it actually has. But Black Broadway was the place to be.
Yes.
Does everybody know where Black Broadway is? U Street, heard that.
Really?
Love it. Yes, really. Black Broadway was the shit. We're talking about 300 black businesses by 1920. 300 black-owned businesses just in that corridor. Not the entire city of D.C., just there. All right? So despite gentrification and the obvious redlining, D.C. entrepreneurship thrived. That first location was right there on U Street for Industrial Bank. All you had to do was walk right down to the bank and be like, look, this is what I need to do. This is what I want. If they said it didn't make sense, it didn't make sense. Your shit was shit. But you had a better chance of doing that, right? I don't think there's 300 black-owned businesses in D.C. I'm hard-pressed to name right now, and I am a co-founder of D&D Black Restaurant Week. Okay? So that is huge, right? Then you have societal organizations that popped up. Now, Jack and Jill. Who knows what Jack and Jill is?
Yeah.
Yes. All right? I was a part of Jack and Jill. Jack and Jill was not started in Washington, D.C. It was started in Philadelphia, but the headquarters is in Washington, D.C. So if you're a young black, particularly if you're a young black light-skinned person, your family went to some sort of university, you were a part of Jack and Jill. I don't care if you wanted to or not. It was a book club, it was a social, it was a tea. It was some sort of shit. But Jack and Jill was that shit. You have, no. But you have these young boys and these young girls that are growing up together, learning together, understanding cultural levels together, and then the group is also giving back and putting money into organizations that build business, that send blacks to college, that send money to HBCUs, things like that, all right? So you have that presence starting to really become and affect what's happening here, but most of those people are doctors. Most of those people have some sort of Esquire level or they are lawyers, all right? So you have that higher level of understanding. They're not looking for the juke joint. They're looking for a more opulent experience, okay? That's probably the reason why you have a spritz in front of you here. I've got to plug this.
Plug it.
All right? So, the spritz you have in front of you is the Don Ciccio and Feely Ambrosia Spritz. It's their version of an Aperol Spritz. It's got the bubbles. I'm going to live it up a little bit. I like the orchid on top. It's a beautiful touch. All right.
DC-based brand.
Heard that. DC-based brand. Heard. All right. The Rock Creek Citizens Association.
Yeah.
Now, Rock Creek Citizens Association. I dug what they were trying to do, but let me tell you, when they tried to create a black organization in Georgetown, which is where this one was, but they did a lot though. Georgetown had a very, very, very large black population. Not because it wanted to be.
Yes, it was.
Not because it wanted to be, but once the slaves were freed, there were 1,300 slaves and 200 free men at the time of the emancipation, in 1862 or 3 or whatever, when D.C. got their freedom. So there were 1,300 people already there, and that was almost half of the population of the white people that were there. So they actually had a large presence, right? So anytime that there was a decision made, there was a parade happening, anything like that, the Rock Creek Citizens Association would step in and be like, oh, you're stepping on some toes and you didn't include black people. Every single time they try to do something. Yeah, but it doesn't exist anymore. They pushed out. But what they also did was they created the first unsegregated playground in Washington, D.C. They were very, very pivotal in that. They also were able to push forward the Francis Pool. Does everybody know where the Francis Pool is over there on 24th and back there over by Blue Duck Tavern and all that? The very first outdoor public black swimming pool that was made just for black people. So Georgetown, who fucking knew? There were movie theaters, there was this, there was that. Was it the lively club scene that we see on U Street? No, not at all. But the understandings of what needed to work from a community standpoint were there, right? Prices go up, people get pushed out. That's what happens. But doctors, lawyers, people that had already had established lives, they were able to stay. And they were able to afford to stay, all right? Club Crystal Caverns. What does that sound like? Yes, it does. Club Crystal Caverns was right there on 11th and U, where Bohemian is now empty. It used to be Live. It was Bohemian Caverns. It's been all those things. They had a burgeoning scene. Burgeoning scene, okay? And all of this, I mean, the last time I was in Bohemian Caverns, the last time it was open, that's exactly what it looked like. It was just like foliage and this and that. It was just like an underground speakeasy kind of place to be. But it was there. It was for black people to perform for black people. And the first time ever at this point, because New York wasn't like that. New York was black people performing for white people, right? So now we actually get to join in on what we've created. We get to see it. We get to be about it. And there's a certain value that's attached to that as well. Because not only does your base grow, but if you can create from an artistic form and bring two sides of people together, then you've actually created something bigger than what you actually set out to do in the beginning. Republic Theater was a movie theater. Republic Theater is now the U Street station. Okay? It was torn down for that. But it's where we would see all the movies. You know? And I guess now is it Gallery Place? Am I tripping? Is that the place to be right now, right? I mean, that's, you know, I don't know. I just go to the movies, but like when you think about something being yours and not yours, this is the time to have those conversations and sort of think about those things. I didn't really care who I was sitting next to. These people didn't think about who they were sitting next to because it was obvious who they were going to be sitting next to. It was obvious who they were going to be sharing their spaces with. They didn't have to think about it. And of course, we had already talked about the White Law Hotel. All right? 1968 to 1975. This is when DC kind of, we had our moment. We had our moment. People were upset. I know that people get upset about the G word. They think the G word is something that's new. It's a new idea.
God.
Can't believe they just started doing this. Huh?
God.
God. That's a lowercase G anyway. Gentrification.
Oh.
Okay? The other G word, the worst one. Gentrification is not a new idea. Gentrification was planned. Development for this particular area was planned. It was from a planning aspect, DC was never meant to be somewhere where you settle. It was always somewhere where you worked. You come, you do business, you leave. You come, you do business, you leave. Yeah. Once people were able to start settling, then things took a little bit of a different turn. Now, with everything positive, with having our own civil rights leaders, with all of that, we get our first mayor, things like that, and it's a black person, and all this, we're just like, oh my God, everything is fantastic. What also happens is that now you have a budget from the federal government, and the government can give and receive. Give and receive, give and receive, right? They can take away whatever they'd like to, and put money where they want to. And government intervention essentially killed this city. It especially hurt this city when Martin Luther King got shot. And we can talk about this after, because I feel like if we get into this right now, everybody's gonna be like, whoa, nah, everybody's gonna feel some sort of way about it, and that's fair. But the assassination of Martin Luther King sparked multiple days of riots. And we know that. All right? Soul Brother. Soul Brother. Why is Soul Brother up here? Does anybody know what Soul Brother means? Okay, Soul Brother. The black businesses on U Street corridor will riot on their businesses because they knew who was rioting. So they said, hey, look, don't, please, whatever you do, don't touch my business. I'm black too. I'm feeling what you're feeling. Oh my God. Everything is burnt and destroyed and all the things. Black Broadway goes south. Lincoln Theater, Howard Theater, everything is gone at this point. It continued with years of decay with no money from the city to put back, that was put back into the community. Why? Anybody. All right, I'll take it. DC definitely grew from a neighborhood standpoint. We have people that are now buying property. There are a lot of people that are profiting off of homes that they bought within this time period. Okay? How much do you think they were buying those homes for?
$80,000. $80,000.
The $1,000 numbers are hilarious to me. You're talking about 1975. Okay? We're talking about people that paid hundreds of dollars for homes. Hundreds of dollars for homes that they're now renting out to you all for $2,000 a month. That's what happened. Okay? The banking and the investment in terms of bringing the city back had nothing to do.
We're listening.
We good? In the back there, we good?
Oh, yeah.
All right, heard that. So putting the money back into the city had zero to do with giving it back to the people that were building for themselves. It actually had to do with making DC a livable place and creating red lines again. Okay? It was like, oh, well, it's back now. But developers still wanted to come in. Business still had to get done. Things needed to be sold. Things needed to be bought. People needed places to live. But it was now an opportunity to say, oh, well, look what you did, what we gave you. You had this, and now it's gone. DC has a very, very rich history of not being able to hold on to space. They literally took the space away.
Did also like how much of it?
Hmm?
Like when it was first started, it was like a perfect square. DC at first, right?
No, it was still a diamond.
A diamond.
But
I mean, a
yeah,
diamond,
they gave
you know.
Southwest. It was the Southwest part that was back.
But they lost it.
Yeah, well, they had to pay for stuff. Yeah. And the businesses that did survive, there is an uptick to this. We do have businesses like Ben Shable that were able to survive this kind of situation, but
Is Florida Ave Girl still open?
yeah, they just closed.
I just saw that.
Yeah, they just closed. Yeah, they just closed. Yeah. And so it's a little bit tough. I mean, it's a back and forth. I mean, you would think that because it was there before, insurance would cover it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the city had some semblance, and the city had insurance, but it was a fraction of what the damage actually was, and so they needed to get bought. The city was in debt. And so when people were offering money, you better be damn sure those people did not look like us. We used our money to build it. You know? So we lost a little bit of opportunity there, and that, again, not our fault. Dude shouldn't have been shot, but it happens. But we still have, again, pockets of, I guess, what people like to call black excellence. I don't like to label those things black excellence because Cardi B is as much as black excellence as Cornel West is black excellence, so I could give a shit, but there were little pockets of what people could still do. Howard University being one of them. HU. You know, heard that? All right. Howard University, from the beginning, was one of the leaders from every single aspect of black art, black culture, black speech, black business. Okay? Black doctors, all of these people that were entrenched and really believed in what Howard was trying to do was about pushing it forward. It wasn't about fitting in. It was about being heard, for sure, but not being afraid to make your own table. Okay? And that is one thing when I started trying to write my book, a lot of this sort of inner struggle of, well, was I trying to break into something, or did I just not care? Because I could have cut my hair to get that job. I could have worn different clothes to do this. I could have done it, but I don't have to. And there was no rule saying that. And for all of what it's worth, Howard University has always been for DC what the government should have been for DC and black people. And I will say that. I'll give it all of its credit for that. So, 1975. I guess you gotta call it 1973, 1974. There's a few black brothers that graduated from Howard.
Hey.
And they are like, you know what? We need a space. Because this is now the height of disco. And disco, I don't know. Ain't so many, I don't know a lot of black dudes that was trying to be John Travolta. That's what I do know. Not that we didn't have our own stuff, because we had our own stuff. We had a whole bunch of cool jazz talking motherfuckers that we had of our own, and we wanted our own stuff. So Malcolm Beach, Bill Lindsay, Claude Roxborough opened the Foxtrot Town Club in 1975 at 1601 R Street Northwest. All right? As we know it today, it's the National Association of Colored Women, Incorporated. All right, yeah, just right there on 16th and R. It's still there. The driveway's still there. It is a historic building. All right. Now, the one way that you would know the Foxtrot was open, the gaslight. We were at WHUR a year and some change ago, talking to Howard somebody on the drum, and we were off air. And he goes, so you heard of this place called I can't even remember. My dad used to take me there. I was like, your dad? When was this? He was like, man, I was a kid. I was, 14, 15. I was like, where is this? And he's like, I don't know, but it had a gas light and like everybody, it was the who's who's. And I was like, I have never heard of this place before in my life. I have tried to figure out where, what, who went, what the fuck this place was for literally a year. And it took me like 8 months, honestly. And my business partner, Dr. Tucker, she's like, this is the place. I'm sure this is the place. And I was like, oh my God, this is the place. The Foxtrot Town Club. Okay? Their idea was to create a space. It didn't start out as being a separated or segregated space. It was just the times. Because at this point, now you have federal jobs and DC jobs being segregated. Okay? You have a lot of separation that's happening, a lot of discord, a lot of divide, a lot of mistrust, because obviously, Dr. King. So the Foxtrot was really supposed to be just a nice place for young, well-to-do, well-dressed people to go, okay? The juke joint wasn't their thing, and they didn't want that. There are places for that. It's called your house. It's called the street. It's called wherever else you wanted to be. It's called trap house, actually. But they wanted to create a space that was elevated, black, and cultured. You say educated?
Sophisticated.
Oh, sophisticated. All right, I heard that. So the Foxtrot Town Club. It was actually named after a stop on the Underground Railroad. There's a lot of people that thought that Foxtrot meant like, it's foxy ladies. It's where you go to catch the foxes. It's a good name. It makes sense. I don't know. It makes sense to me. But that it was really supposed to imbibe that like speakeasy type of vibe, right? So they were thinking about this from the top down. They really wanted to make it black and have it be black owned and have it encompass what we were doing. It was only for us, but not to the public. It wasn't for us. Now, when they put out the ad in the Washington Post used to list their stuff in the nightlife sections, and If it was a white place, they would just say it's a disco. If it's a black place, they say black owned, as more of like a warning, so that black people know there's gonna be a whole bunch of black people in here. Just to let you know. Even though, I mean, this is 16th and S, like this is not, you know, it's not Black Nally at the time or anything like that. So it was an exclusive club. Membership was required. Jacket was required. I think at the time, in 1975, it's $50 for a year and $300 for a lifetime membership to the Fox Trap Town Club. They created a restaurant in there called Creole Orleans. I think that the idea behind this is very, very, it's interesting, right? Because country clubs don't allow people of color. There are some that still, in this town and in Maryland, exclude because of ethnicity, right? Religious views. Some don't let women into certain parts of their clubs, things like that. And when you think of something that is super exclusive, but a place that you have to be, it creates a supply and demand for this type of culture, right? If you can't get it somewhere else and somebody else can give you that, then this is what it needs to be. I also, being a bartender and being in hospitality, I generally sit in talks that are about what I'm supposed to be doing on the back end of this bar. And very rarely do I get to be out here and talk about what it feels like to walk into a bar and be the only black face in it. Yeah. And to be in experiences in a town that you may be second, third, fourth generation DC and not look like anybody that you walk into a place, right? This model doesn't necessarily hold up, because I do think that there's a time and a place, right? You don't always wear a suit jacket everywhere. I dress like this for y'all, not for me, you know? But there is that sense of like, hey, we are special too. We have excellence, we have this. And so I don't look at this as more of an exclusionary model. I definitely look at it more as a, yes, we got this. And there are people like this, and there were people that were dying to get it. Muhammad Ali was there. Marion Barry was there. Your homeboy Farad was there.
Right.
All right. Sly and the Family Stone. They said he didn't have a jacket on. He couldn't even get in. He's the biggest dude there ever was in the 70s, and he couldn't even get in. And so I'm gonna play this video for you all and get a little bit of a feel for what the Fox Trap was, and then let's discuss after, you know, and really sort of see how DC has evolved as a culture, as a town, in terms of where we sit with that. Because I don't want to necessarily speak for myself, but I think I'm a little bit torn. I'm a little bit torn from an experience part, right? I love going to black-owned establishments. I'd like to drink more than Hennessy and Jack Daniels. I love being in bars that have like 25, 30 sherries on the menu and really, really nice French and Italian wines. But I also don't want to be asked for my credit card before I sit down. Yes. So we're gonna get there. All right, we'll get there. But let's just see a little bit and learn a little bit about the Fox Trap, because I guess this could tell you a lot more than I could. Ooh, what was that? Was that on the mic? No. Here we go. There you go. Oh, it's super cheesy. Remember, these guys were born long time ago. Man.
Fox Trap was the social meeting place, fun place, introduction place, network marketing place. Just like you got Facebook today, that was Facebook.
1601 R Street has great meaning for me because I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. And my mother was very, very active in the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs. We called it then the Federation.
Well, I mean, you gotta understand, at that particular point in time in history, okay, once again, Washington, D.C., for a young group of black professionals to get a commercial lease in downtown Washington was unheard of. I mean, that was not gonna happen. You know, there was a Fair Housing Act for residential, but for commercial, they just said, no, you're black, you're not gonna get a commercial lease to make some money. They weren't having that. So the fact that they were willing to give us a chance, some young guys in their 20s, okay, we were middle, late 20s, asking them to lease out their entire building, that was a leap of faith for them, and we couldn't have done it without us.
Bill Lindsay and Malcolm Beach, if I can remember, and they founded this club. And it was an idea where we will bring professional blacks together in a beautiful environment. And we would have entertainment and socialization, and it would be sort of a membership. It had some elitist levels to it, but I think it was all about social kind of interaction.
You know, there was never really anything like the Foxtrot until that started in 1975. I mean, it kind of hit at the right time, at the right, the right combination of people. Blacks were creating a chocolate city, and it seemed to be like tailor-made for that moment.
It was a place where the creme de la creme, the sophisticates could gather. And it was a place where people are willing to pay a membership to come, and whether they come to eat, whether they come to let their hair down, or they come to party.
They wanted to do something different from what was going on at that time. And the private club mindset was new, and as they say, first is everything, second means nothing. So they broke the ground with that in Washington.
I had just flown in from Monrovia, Liberia, and my girls, Cliftine Jones, Pat Wells, said, hey, you've got to go to this place called the Foxtrot. And that night, I was there, completely blown away. There was nothing like it when I left. And honestly, the first club, there hasn't been anything like it since.
Well, the first time I heard about the Foxtrot was from you. A couple of people that you knew, one in particular, Bill Lindsay, who worked at the telephone company at that time. He and his partners, Malcolm Beach and a number of other people were opening up this club. It was a private town club, and that was in itself something that was kind of unheard of because it was right at the start of the disco era.
Well, I'm sure it was when either Bill Lindsay or Claude called me on the phone and said, we're doing this. Because I remember there were some meetings before it actually opened to describe the idea, to tour the building for reporters and other, interested people. So there was a build-up to, the opening, weeks and stuff.
You saw people from, California, the Hollywood set. You saw people who were in economic development. You saw people from the Hill. You just saw an eclectic group of our folk, as my husband would say, the tribe, getting together in a very social way.
I didn't really understand the meaning of the Foxtrot. I did recognize that it was a place where powerful people showed up. Most of them, by and large, were black. So there would have been the powerful black folks of D.C. And then, by extension, it ended up being the powerful black people of the United States and internationally, because they were ambassadors and their children, some of them who had gone to Howard with, who ended up at the Foxtrot too.
Well, of course, when Foxtrot came along, it was the first time I heard it, and it was, I went there, and I went there many, many times. It was absolutely a fun place to be. You would always run into fun people, people who were, in various forms of professional life or various forms of careers in the city.
So you got an opportunity to have a good time, and you got an opportunity to be able to talk business on many occasions.
The Fox Trap, for me and for the members of the caucus, it was an invitation to come and to feel a little bit like a celebrity. And the greeting was very, very sincere. And we kind of understood, we being the spouses and the members, that our presence there gave a little cachet also and credibility to the club.
Okay, well, you know, the interesting thing is, the first time I heard that word, I smiled because, you know, back in the day, fine women were called foxes. And fox trap meant, you know, a place where you could go and, you know, trap the women, or the women were all in that one location.
Were we women looking for foxes, or who was on the hunt, or were the men on the hunt?
That's what came to my mind, and I always thought that was, I don't know who thought of that name, but I always thought that it was unique and it was a great name to have. Plus they, you know, they had a unique spelling to it, so I thought it was very creative.
The Fox Trap, my friend, I'm glad you mentioned it. The Fox Trap was one of the most elegant, wonderful, private clubs. I had never seen anything like it. It was so popular by the time I was turned on to it. It was like you had to go there. It was just a wonderful, beautiful setting, and all of the heavyweights that came through town came to the Fox Trap. I love that place.
History.
I didn't make that movie, so you can donate. Don Baker is creating a documentary that is his sort of like deck, if you will, his business deck for people. You can definitely go on to GoFundMe and donate to the documentary of the Fox Trap. I think they are at, I think they're $2,500 away from their goal. You know, it's $1 here, $5 here, $10 there. But it's definitely a story that needs to be told. Because I don't think that here in DC, especially the ages that we are right now, I don't think that we necessarily understand that. Now, the Foxtrot Town Club died in the 80s, right? They tried to revive the club in 1994 down the wharf. Does anybody want to take a guess where they tried to revive this? Who's old enough to remember what the wharf looked like 10 years ago?
Wait a minute.
Zanzibar. Zanzibar. Thank you. So they went back. Exactly. They went back and decided that they wanted to revive the Foxtrot Town Club at Zanzibar in the late 90s. Now, prices are inflated. DC has now gone through a lot of changes. The Southwest waterfront wasn't necessarily the safest place to be, but it is where we could be at the time. They were then charging, I guess, because of inflation, it ended up being about $350 to $500 for a yearly membership, and then $2,000 for a lifetime membership to the Foxtrot Town Club, which no longer exists. So $2,000 is not well spent, and people did end up spending it. But they still have Facebook reunions, and they still try to revive it for nights at a time, which I think is definitely sort of where it needs to be. From a Black culture standpoint, is the club, we do clubs in DC. We know those nightlife times. I ran the club circuit for a little bit.
Love was the best club.
Love was the best club. Let me tell you something though. Irresponsibility, all right, hold up. I feel you. As a business owner, irresponsibility from a business owner, letting people die, letting people get hurt, is nothing. So I'm not, you know, I feel you on that.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Original Foxtrot Club.
Why did it what? Okay, yeah, it definitely did not. I wouldn't say that it failed. They weren't doing the numbers that they needed to do. The city had evolved, but also from an economic standpoint, there weren't enough Black people in the city to sustain that model. Okay? At that point, you have heavy crime. You have heavy amounts of people not being able to support themselves, children, appropriate jobs. DC is a case study that doesn't need to be studied. It's like, it literally, if you opened up all the things that happened in DC government from the time that it got its first mayor to right now, it's been the same exact story the entire time, okay? So if you don't put the money that rich people are coming into with to the neighborhoods that need it most, then the neighborhoods that need it most will have nothing. DC does not have to go by the federal sort of state by state public school system. It chooses to. Public schools are financed how? Taxpayer money. Taxpayer money from where? Why does it matter where you live?
Locally. Zip code. The damn census shit.
Not census.
Oh, the tax decree.
They do it by the census.
Hold on, no, she's got it. She's got it.
Your locality goes directly to.
But the census defines
the school where you send your kids.
So yeah.
Those taxes that you pay go exactly to where you send your kids.
Right.
Okay? DC decided to adopt that model for no good reason. No good reason at all.
Because DC feel out of place.
Let me finish. Give me 1 second, baby. Hold on. And we're going to raise our hand in those.
Okay. Sorry.
DC disproportionately, red line, north and south. Okay? And east and west. So your 7s, your 8s, if that's going to be the black community, and then you now are segregating jobs, you're not allowing finances that go into Midtown, which is downtown, which is where we are right now, to go there, where politicians live and have apartments and pay taxes on. If you're not allowing money from Upper Northwest, where those people also live and stay and developments are being done, that money is only funneled into the schools that are there, not below that. So at that point, once that income disparity happens, then again, it's the same thing that happens with any business. If your main base can't afford to do what your business is offering, then yeah, you have to close. You have to close. You have no choice.
So what year did they close?
They closed 1984. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I believe it was 1984, but I will go back into my notes.
Okay.
Sorry, who has their hand up? Sorry, you wanted to say something, baby.
I forgot.
You forgot?
What else?
Oh, come on, baby. It was so important, like 13 seconds ago.
Add a tidbit.
You can add whatever you want, my love.
So that definitely makes sense how you said that like based off of your location and how you're paying for taxes. Because I used to be a former teacher. As far as Ward 7 and 8, they deliberately do things that basically disenfranchise that community.
Yes.
And it's locally separated by a body of water, makes it very hard to have just. I was surprised to see a Whole Foods pop up in Navy Yard.
Mm-hmm.
But it only popped up after gentrification.
Yes.
So it's like once you start to understand the reason and the timing of certain things, it's not by just pure luck. Everything is very planned. Yeah. So it's an agenda that's very strategic.
An agenda that's very strategic. Now, that Whole Foods that popped up, that caters towards a certain demographic of people. That brings me to my next point, and then let's discuss. The agenda of giving a certain clientele, a certain consumer group, a Whole Foods, whilst giving the other part of this demographic and consumer a corner store.
Corner store, liquor store.
Right? Corner store, liquor store, whatever.
Convenience store.
At what point do young black people, do we say, okay, I needed that when I was there? It's great that it's there right now. I'm glad that it's there right now, but it's not servicing the people that needed it. It's servicing the people that want it.
Yeah.
Right? So if you sort of take that and mirror that with the hospitality industry, because the exact same thing. The hospitality industry as a whole, and I don't think that this is news, but I think that everybody kind of needs to hear it. The hospitality industry was never geared towards black people. So when you go out and you feel some sort of way in a fucking restaurant, good. It did its job. It did its job. It wasn't catered towards us. It wasn't catered towards what we feel. It wasn't catered towards how we think. It wasn't catered towards how we drink. Now, if we then elevate our palate or try something new or whatever, blah, 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 and we go in and say, hey, I actually do like this. This is cool. There's like a ton of stuff here that I would drink. That's awesome. But it's not that from a service standpoint that we were ever put into a business model when anybody thinks about that money that's going to be a profit at the end of the day. We don't make a droplet. Okay? Huh?
I thought we made all the money.
Except for, but again,
when we're
music and talent
when you're
wasn't
able to
used to entertain us.
Right.
It's not used to entertain us now either.
Right.
It's used to entertain other people.
Yeah. It's exploiting.
Right? Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to say, like, I just really want everybody to, like, literally empower yourself to, like, be the change you want to see. Like, literally, if you notice a certain change in your community, like, literally, I contacted, like, people that were heads of Safeways and Giants. So I was originally, like, I moved all over, but I was in Navy Yard and, Ohio. But I was in Navy Yard. I lived all over. Right now I'm on H Street, and I'm like, I don't like the way it's like changing. So I'm like the Safeway over there by Heck and Jamal. Now there's finally a gluten-free or vegan options. Like, I'm lactose intolerant. So for me, I'm just like, oh, now there's a whole bunch of variety of items that weren't there before. Or even their liquor, if you wanted a nice champagne, or if you wanted certain things, like, I've seen it expand because it's treating the new environment, the new population that's moving to H Street, Northeast. So for me, I'm just like, I really just want to encourage everyone to like empower themselves to be like, you know, let them know that even though it wasn't designed, they feel like it may not have been designed for you, it's still for you. So feel empowered to like say your part, do what you need to do to let your voice be heard, because I was just like, it shouldn't have to take for certain developments and things to fall into place for me to feel more at home. Yep. Like that's, no. I still pay that money. I still love my community, but to me that's kind of a little ridiculous. It's been like a waiting game. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
What's being passed around for you, and then we'll get into it. I have another question for you guys. Is the night flights. This is actually my cocktail that I had on the Black News menu. It is a combination of a Vesper and an Aviation. The reason why I wanted to end with this is because it kind of was sort of the culmination for me when I knew that cocktails were what I was going to do. And it ended up in liquor.com and on World's 50 Best Cocktails and all that. So enjoy. It's not a cocktail, so be careful. Ain't nothing but booze in this motherfucker. I'll tell you right now. Yes, sir.
What's a Vesper and what's the Aviation?
A Vesper, so vodka, gin, vodka, Lillet. Lillet is it's an aromatized white wine. An Aviation, for the most part, is creme de violette, gin, maraschino liqueur.
Okay, I got so much to learn.
Minus a couple of, it's all liquor. Literally every single ingredient.
Give me the list that it made again.
World's 50 Best Cocktails, and it was on liquor.com. Does anybody else have anything else on what this young gentleman said from Ohio? I will in 2 seconds. No. Okay. So, question for everybody, and then we kind of gotta I don't know if you all have questions or whatever for me. That's fine. Going out, right? I had already touched on this. Going out, I have this dilemma. Oh, there are some. I'm just like, no, don't go there. Don't go there.
Go there. Go there. Go there. Go there. Go there.
No, I'm gonna go there. I'm talking about when you're talking to your friends. Y'all cute. No, I'm talking about when you go there. Y'all cute. No, I'm gonna always go there. But
we gotta compete. Look, we gotta people. We gotta compete again.
I don't want to. I want to be able to go out and suggest Black-owned spaces in Washington, D.C. Legitimately, I started a company with 2 other people to do that. And it is so difficult for me to sit here and say, hey, look, my friend that likes cocktails, go to this bar. And I go, maybe not. Maybe I try the food there and go have cocktails over there. It's very hard for me to see the full picture when it comes to owning black spaces. Maybe that's why when I've decided to open spaces, inserting a little bit of color has never been a bad thing. Inserting diversity has not been a bad thing because I want people to say, oh, okay, yeah, nah, the shit is dope, period.
That is deciding the life.
Right? How do we get to a point where we can get black-owned businesses in this city, period, on that list of go here, period? Because I can name none right now.
We gotta have a list.
I'm part of a couple, and I put my money into some of them, and I have cocktails on some of them, but from all around, I don't know. So how do we get on the just go there, period list, and not the is black-owned, and that is the warning? Because remember, he said that's a warning when it was posted in the Washington Post. How do we get there?
It's got to start from a purveyor's perspective first. Like the people who run it, who own it, who open it, they got to be the ones to set the standard.
And had it
Okay.
paper.
But what is that standard? They don't know it.
Well, for the people who do know the standard, and it starts there, because it's think about it in regards to marketing and trends and things like that. You know what I mean? So if somebody starts it, you make it look cool, sexy, all of that, because you're going to have to make it look cool and sexy. It's going to have to appeal to us. You know, that'll be, for me, I think that would be one of the first steps.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Hold on, Deke, 1 second. Let me get this young lady in the back. Yeah. And then Mario, I got you.
I think personally there's a stigma for black-owned businesses. A lot of it comes from you have to be integral in your community. I work in wine, and so like wine is a difficult subject to like go forward with in a black community because a lot of people don't drink wine.
But they love to say stuff like
Come on, baby.
Yeah, a lot of it is you have to be vocal and you have to be like nobody likes wine the first time they try it. It's a very much like nuanced, like interesting kind of thing, and it takes a long time to actually be interested in like very specific, interesting wines. And so I think a lot of it comes from like our community, like we have to develop interest within our community. But that's a difficult thing to say. But I do think it's like very nuanced in the fact that like black-owned businesses are, it's like stigmatized overarchingly.
Which is why I only take as of last year, like I stopped taking like all of the clients. If you're not a black-owned business, I'm not going to consult. Period. Because it's not a thing. I stopped consulting for businesses that were not black-owned businesses. Like it's not a thing. But for that very reason. Because number one, they're gonna pay me less because I'm black. But then also you're gonna do whatever you want to anyway.
Exactly.
And I'd rather be where people actually need the help and charge them exactly what you were gonna give me because you were gonna pay me less than what I'm supposed to be making anyway.
And they receive your passion. You
I see. You're a wine girl. What's your name?
Octavia.
Octavia?
Yes. Octavia King.
Heard that. I like that. Mario.
I think it's really important to design places of inclusivity. And when you design, AJ knows me very well. For me, I'm of brown descent as well, and for me, it's very important to understand what my history was, what exists, and how can I bring more inclusivity to my own spaces. Meaning, what do other people do? I can't only think of myself. So I think that there's a huge responsibility if you ever find your place or find a place where you can make a difference. I think it's important to understand that there's more than just yourself, than your own experience, and that everyone around you also has a part to play into what you're trying to do, which is make money. So part of that is understanding that you need to make your own living, but you also need to create a space for everyone to feel welcome into it. And more, I feel like the conversation always goes to, how can we make something better? I'm proud to be Latino, and to say that is to say I understand what my corner store bodega culture was or still is in this country. How can I be proud to serve an empanada? And part of that is to say, if I make it look good enough to serve a very humble food that has a very rich history, which a lot of other people, and part of that also comes from African history. If I know that, then I know that if I can create a place for everyone to come in to at least be, wow, this is really cool. Then the second part is to say, this is what it is. So you're kind of taking that stigma away from the approach or the being apprehensive, just like wine is the same thing of being open. And I think everyone needs to walk into a place and be open and be, I guess, less apprehensive to, you know, understand that there's more than just ourselves.
Yes.
This is all new to me, but the history isn't.
Okay.
However, just listening to the conversations and what you're talking about, but going forward, I think that we live in a society, unfortunately, that builds upon negativity.
Okay.
And so you can use that also as a platform and flip it in a way of, like you said, it was a place of warning. So I can see it being now as like those posters that were about wanted. So you can develop on that. Like it's something you want. You want to be in this space. You want to entertain your culture, your family, all of that thing. But it's like learning how to take negative things and using it as a platform to catapult you into a space and an environment that's really going to make it jump, make it do what it do for you, for our culture. Because as a person who, like I said, I just walked in here today as a guest.
Yes.
But dealing with the things that I deal with on a regular basis, I work for National Immigration Law Center, so I'm dealing with different things from a different cultural basis. But to see it from an entertainment side and more of what can we bring to our culture, it's all about how we can take something and twist it, but make it beneficial in a way that will bring it back to us, because I feel like as a race, it has always started with us anyway. So it's all about how you finish.
I think that's fair. And I think that 40, 50 years ago, that would have been the best way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Get somebody in your spot. That's how you do it.
Right.
I like that, actually, because that's dope. What I will say is that we are not, no matter how offensive, no matter how crazy, no matter how ratchet something may seem or be as of right now, if it's coming from Black, white people will buy it. They will buy it. So we actually don't hold court upon our own mess anymore. The only thing that we actually hold court on anymore is our opulence. That is it. Nobody can take that. Our opulence. Nobody can take that. They don't want that because it's not sellable. They can't sell it back to us, and they can't sell it to everybody else.
Right.
So, again, I like what you're saying. I hear you. And I'd like to sort of figure out how to bring that from a social standpoint. I think that that's actually pretty dope. But they took it. What they do know from an entertainment standpoint is that entertainers want to make it so bad that they will sell themselves. Athletes will want it so bad, they've had it so bad, they want it so bad that they have a price. And once we put a price on our stuff, that's when the like, oh yeah, come and we're exotic. Didn't happen. The only time that happened, we talked about it, that's the Cotton Club stuff. Right? That's the, oh yeah, come, break the law for a whole night. Spend $300 to get in, have dinner, have drinks, and come dance with Black people. Yo, come do that. And white people were like, yep, I want to do that. I'm going to break the law for a whole night. It's prohibition, so I can't be drinking anyway. And I'm with Black people? Oh man, it's the check. That's what the parental advisory did for every fucking rapper out there, was make them profitable. That warning made them profitable to other people. So bringing it back around to us, how do we take that, what we have, do we say, no, you can't have that, I don't have a price? Screw you, I'm keeping this for my people, you can't have none of this, I'm starting my own thing? Like Chance the Rapper, he just said, all right, I'm going to start my own label, I'm going to be independent. Great. That's amazing. And he's reached a ton of people. He's a good dude. His music is, but he's a good dude. He's a good dude, but it's also something that, I'm sorry, they don't want him. They don't want him because he's not talking about fucking roofing women, and so I was about to say, really not okay. He's not talking about roofing women and running lean and smoking and this and that. He's not appealing to that like emo white kid who like buys this music. You know what I'm saying? So it's for them. It's like, yeah, you can have a chance. You can have him. They ain't made no. They have not made any. They don't want to give him money for what? Make your own money, sir. Because he doesn't. There's a very raw but very real quote that is. It has been manipulated and passed down, but essentially it was something. It was the mentality that Damon Dash essentially started his whole thing, his whole business mind with was that he talked to a Jewish man, and the dude told him like, look, the black market is very appealing to us because you all will do everything that you can to not spend money where you are. You will do everything you can to be anything but you. Because everybody else has told you that you cannot be you. But all we want is you, but then you'll give us our money right back.
Right.
And so that part of it, if we can bring in good food, culture, the education behind it, start building workforces who understand hospitality, not service.
Hospitality.
Fuck service. Hospitality. No, seriously. I'm a free black woman. I'm a free black woman. You get a smile. You get water. You get everything that you need. But I am not subservient to you. It's hospitality. You're in my home. I love this place around me. Respect my shit and respect me. Because you would walk into somebody's home and respect them. That's what I mean by fuck service.
Hospitality.
Hospitality is different. Right. But we have to create that space where we can get white people in that space too. They have to be comfortable around that space too. Whereas we can push our way through and say, yeah, I'm in your space. And they can say, oh, okay, very nice for you to join us tonight. Okay. And not try to, in any way, shape, or form, go outside of understanding what we need as people from an aesthetics standpoint. So, yes, all of the fucking wild out shit. I like the wanted shit. I like it. There's a thing behind that. I actually did an entire like bar night on that. I was with Capri actually, where that Josh did that for us. I get it. We're past that point because we already named our price. Our price is $1 million.
Yes. I might have asked you this in one of our private conversations.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts on celebrity culture's influence and impact on drinking culture among black people?
That's a deep question.
I love this. Okay,
because that's a big part into why Fridays is what it is.
Say it louder.
Say it
louder.
What are her thoughts on celebrity culture's impact and influence on drinking culture among black people?
All right. So there's all the bad stuff. My man right here just said alcoholism. So I'm gonna take a walk. Is that okay?
Walk
around there.
And spit out y'all shit that y'all think.
So aspirational drinking, aspirational living has been a part of black culture since we got here.
Since before we was here, right?
No, since we got here.
Okay.
Aspirational. Aspirational drinking. It's a very, very real concept. It literally, marketing concepts are built around aspirational drinking. For us.
It's fairly new.
Nope.
Is that the same thing as the cigarette people back?
Same thing.
Okay.
Newports. Remy Martin. Hennessy. Patron. Ciroc most definitely. Colt 45. Those were planted. Those are. I will say this. That wasn't necessarily aspirational. That was here. Boop, this is what you get. And that's not about aspirational drinking. Aspirational drinking, black people have been aspirational since we were brought here. We were aspirational because we wanted to aspire to fucking get out of slavery. Okay, so that was one. Two, we get free, and then we're like, no, we want to aspire to own. Then we want to aspire to have our kids own.
They made us that thirsty.
All of a sudden. Yes, by ripping somebody from what you already know. Because I'm sorry, there are still cultures in Africa, they don't give a shit about what we're doing over here. They're like, screw you.
Yeah.
Screw you. We're doing this here, this is how we do it. And I'm gonna put your black gay ass in jail. Because you want to be all progressive. You want to aspire to be out.
Have an open mind.
Put your ass in jail. That's what it is. They don't care.
And
And that's fair and that's fine. But when you take something from somebody and you oppress them, then there's always levels. As black people, we are still reaching to get to levels. Now, what marketing companies have done, and this is beauty products. This ain't just booze.
Right.
But since we're in a hospitality situation, let's just go there. But yes, hair, booze, nails, skin color, clothing, all the things, right? We are aspiring to be somewhere. Shit, the Foxtrot Town Club. That's an aspiration. Literally, before we watched the video, I had said they want to be a part. They want to create a club. There are already clubs out there excluding. If you have a special club, then you are then of a different level. So aspirational drinking is something that I love talking about. It's a little bit long of a subject right now, but for the most part, there you go. We are marketing studies. We are, hey, we're going to do a diversity hire. Sure we're going to do a diversity hire? Why are we going to do a diversity hire? Well, we pulled really well in this neighborhood, but not this neighborhood. So in order to sell more, we should hire a black guy. Or a black woman. Or this. Or that. We should do this. Starbucks. They have their issue with the police dragging 2 young businessmen out of there. What did they turn around and do? They hired a black CFO. There's no stoppage of where people will go to make black people want to jump. We just need to stop jumping. We have things. We have a lot of things. But the opportunity from where we sit is not great. Land ownership. And I'll tell y'all a real personal story really, really quickly. I decided to buy a house 3 years ago. And my mother has worked her ass off as a single woman, as a single parent, to give me like everything. I mean everything. I mean private education. I mean pay for my upper education until I was 25. No matter what I wanted to do. And did the same thing for my sister, who also went on to be an Ivy League and is an astrophysicist right now.
Yes.
I do not take what I have for granted. Did I want to go to Harvard like my mom? No. I don't take what I have for granted, but I do know what I have. The one thing that I said to her 3 years ago was that I pay $3,000 a month in rent in DC. I need to get out. She's like, I'll just buy a house. I pay $3,000 in New York. Okay, cool. So we bought a house. Me, my mother, and my sister have a collective pot of money. A collective pot. If I want to do something, I have to go to my collective and say, hey, I want to do something. The Japanese do that too. The Koreans do that too. The Chinese do that too. But it needs to be more than 3 fucking people. Because I know what I want to aspire to. I want to be my goddamn mother. And we're talking about kids who are growing up and they want to be something else because they see it on the TV or they see it because of they're literally preying off the things that we don't have because we'll never have them. Because nobody will give it to us. And we're not paying it backwards. We're literally not giving it back and building. So like, I'm in a relationship with a woman. She happens to be white. It is what it is. She wants to live in an apartment, wants to move to DC. And I said, okay, baby, we will get an apartment in DC. I'm fine with that. Let's get an apartment in DC. But I'm not selling my house.
That's right.
Why?
Yes.
Why the fuck would I sell my house?
Motherfucking shit.
Huh?
You need to own some.
Keep equity.
Thank you.
Ownership.
Own your shit.
And
in DC, they won't let you own anything, so you aspire to want to own. Stop trying to own stuff and they won't give it to you. Go and buy stuff where it's there and it's available and it's cheaper and it's bigger. You need that. I'm getting there.
Okay.
Because then, once you get it, then you stop aspiring to have it.
Yeah.
I wanted this watch really, really bad. I made 75 cocktails to get this watch. And the business owner gave me a $350 watch. I had to comp $120 worth of stuff. And I got a $350 watch. And you know what? It's the first time I ever fucking wore it. That was a year ago. I don't want it anymore.
Right.
Once you have it, you don't want it. So when you have people that are there around you in your community that show you that this is what we have, why the fuck are we going anywhere else? That's the Black Broadway mentality. Why the fuck would I go down there when I have it up here?
Yeah. Right. Well, people look like me.
Yes, ma'am.
Like, to what extent do you think that Black business has been hampered by just the gap of, like, knowledge? Like, how to navigate through acquiring loans, how to speak the language of someone who is holding kind of like your future in their hands, so to speak. Like, how did you personally navigate that? Were you just networking with other people who had similar knowledge, or did you like go way outside the box for that?
Yeah. And piggybacking off of that is the lack of education, the same as a lack of communication, how you receive stuff.
Okay. I will be very honest with everybody. My story has always been the same. My story has never changed. I am who I am. I don't regret it. I was born super privileged. Not super rich, but super privileged.
Where are you from?
I was born in the Bronx. Okay. Okay. Really? Born in the Bronx. My father died before I was born. My father died before I was born. My mother told him I was a thing, but they never went to the doctor. Ended up being a thing. He ended up having a heart attack. She's a single mother, worked for the state of New York. She did go to Harvard for undergrad, so it's not like it was hard for her to get a job necessarily, but she was taking care of him. He kind of put her in a weird financial situation. She was like, look, I'm having a kid. What am I going to do? I went to Harvard. She studied African American studies. So, what do you do with that? It doesn't matter. She went to law school. So she applied to a bunch of law schools, got into a bunch of them. She decided to go to LA. She got to LA with a friend. I go and visit her. She meets my stepdad. They get divorced. We move to Maryland. They get back together. We move to Maryland. They get divorced again. Story. But throughout that entire situation, I spent 2.5 years in public school. I went to school with Shirley Robinson. I went to school with Jane Carey's daughter. I went to school with all of the, LA was that you could walk, anybody could walk in this door and I'm like, yo, what's up? You know what I'm saying? Like, I played baseball with Cedric Ceballos as a kid, and Shaquille O'Neal would be at the fucking, it's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, Magic Johnson would be at Doolin's every Sunday. Like, you don't, that's not how I was raised, and so it's not.
Would you say you identify more with West Coast, or?
No, I'm 100% an East Coast kid. Like, all my family was still back here, right? So, like, no matter what, I'm New York, I'm DC, I'm all of that, no matter what. But she never left there to be any sort of wonder. And that is the problem, is that when this young lady over here asked, how do we bridge that gap and how do we get that knowledge, it has zero to do with, oh my God, yeah, I'm gonna sit down and AJ, I'm gonna get your number, I'm gonna fucking call you, I'm gonna be in your bar, I wanna learn from you. Okay, great. But what are you gonna do with that? Am I teaching you, or am I teaching a bunch of people? How am I changing that culture? Right? That's number one. Number two, from a business standpoint, I can't tell you how valuable it was to have other people in my family be really fucking successful. There's zero that can.
That's your blood. That's your
like, I can't. If I needed something, I have a question about something. Was I given a lot? Yes. Did I have to earn a lot? Yes. I started working at 14, not because I had to. Because my mom said, I'm not going to stand outside of a fucking shoe store with you, you fucking idiot. I'm, 34 years old, 35 years old. I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. But at the same time, if you all have knowledge, who are you teaching right now? Who have you decided to teach? My man Farrar, he says to me, AJ, come talk to my kids. And I said, what do you mean your kids? He said, no, my kids. This man's worked with kids that have come from nothing, in and out of the system, juvenile detention and foster care and all of that. his whole dream is to put together a situation where they have a work-to-home situation as soon as they come out of the foster care situation. So they're not on the street. That's his whole dream. So he said, come talk to those kids. It's talking to people like that and then continuing that and continuing to give them opportunities. If we can't give opportunities to people, we can say all we want to. We can talk all day. But where's it going to go? You know? So I think more to sort of what your question was, like, you have to be immersed in that, but you have to eat. You have to eat. You have to be hungry for that. If you don't go searching for it, nobody's going to give it to you. Nobody. Nobody. I was lucky. I'm not the person to ask, and I'll be the first person to say that. I'm not the person to ask. Because anything that I needed from that kind of situation, it was a phone call away. Phone call away. Except for the restaurant industry. Because none of my family was in it, you know? And that, I had to learn on my own. Okay, does that help?
Yeah, no, that's excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right. I think I'm out of time, but obviously, if anybody wants to like talk later, you can. I do want to say, I don't know if I didn't say it before, Uncle Nearest actually supplied the first cocktail, the Manhattan variation. I don't think, Paulie, did you say it was Uncle Nearest in the first cocktail? Yep. Oh, okay. All right. So it was this. I just want to make sure that my boy Matt, I showed him some love because he drove all the way over here to drop off the bottles for that. And that meant a lot to me.
What's Uncle Nearest?
Uncle Nearest, it's not local, but it is black owned.
What is it?
Female owned. Black female owned whiskey. Bourbon.
Give me the card.
You
sponsor my birthday.
I've never met. Thank you. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you. Not really sure how to end this off, but again, if you all want to have and continue the conversation, let me know. I'm here.
All right.
You messed up night, brother. Jesus Christ.
I was gonna say, I said, hey, but it was you. That's why.
How you been? You are working your glasses. Hey, thank you, bro.
I'm here. Thank you so much.
She know her shit.
That's important.
No. You gotta get